Hello, I'm Andrew Dyer. Happy New Year, and welcome to another edition of the Roundball Report, the only show in the area dedicated to highlighting the excellence of the high school, college, and professional basketball teams which play in the Washington metropolitan area. And unfortunately, neither of my co-hosts, Janae Hayes nor Nikki Lewis, could make it tonight, but they will return as soon as their schedules permit. We're going to get things started tonight. Is going to take a look at the local college basketball scene, as both the Georgetown and University of Maryland men are in the top 25. And here with us to weigh in with their thoughts on the local college basketball scene are Shannon Cross of CTV News and our own coach Jimmy Fly Hellman of HSRN. Shannon, Jimmy, welcome to the Roundball Report.
Thank you.
And Shannon, it's your first time here. Why don't you let the folks know about what we were just talking about in the green room, your storied past to get you to your pending current future.
Oh, wow. Well, I started as a news producer in Charlotte, North Carolina, and after doing that for about a year, 2 years, I moved on to work at ESPN and spent about 8 years in Bristol, Connecticut.
Ooh, wow.
So it was an amazing part of my career, and so thankful for the experiences I learned both behind the scenes and on camera. So really great experience.
And speaking about experience, you're going to do some great things here at CTV with my good buddy Curtis Crutchfield.
Absolutely. Right now I'm a sports reporter for CTV, so folks have probably seen me on air midweek.
Well, we thank you for sharing some time with us. And
really
I'm sure one of the things you've been covering is the surprising year the University of Maryland men have been having. It was a lot of upheaval in the offseason, but I guess it turned out to be an addition by subtraction as they got 5 old faces out, and the new freshman crop has been doing great things, and they've risen to number 11 in the country.
Right, and the thing is, it's like they unloaded so many, and people weren't even expecting them to be at the top of this new conference that they're in. In the Big Ten, it's like, oh, come on. These guys, you know, these aren't competition for us, but we see at 14-1, they're doing their thing, and 2-0 in the conference.
Right. And Jimmy, it looked like we had talked about Melo Trimble having this meteoric rise, but you said when he gets into the Big Ten on the road, there are going to be moments where he looks like a freshman, and he showed plenty of those moments in that Michigan State game. But as well as the senior way, but to get them into overtime, and the combination of a team effort got them that huge victory, double overtime victory against Michigan State.
Well, yeah, in Michigan, and since that time, they just beat Minnesota at home the first Big Ten game. And what I saw in that game is just balance. They've got a mixture of veteran players, young players. You know, Trimble, Dion Wiley is giving them productive minutes. But they're putting their hat on defense. Minnesota came in averaging 82 points a game. They held them to 58. And if you bring defense to the table every night, you're going to have a chance to win. The young man, DeMonte Dodd, 12 rebounds. John Graham is giving them inside presence. So they have people that are fitting into roles right now, which as a coach, that's what you want. And this team hasn't peaked yet. So I think that they have a legitimate shot at winning the Big Ten this year.
And Shannon, one of the things, the style of play, it's a good transition for them on the basketball side, because the Big Ten, while it still is known as a very high-level conference, the type of athleticism that you see at the top end of the ACC with the Dukes and the North Carolinas isn't quite there with the Michigans and Michigan States, and those two programs are having down years, so the timing is great for them.
Oh, it's perfect timing. And the thing is, we know them for their three-point shooting, but they're not just a perimeter team. They're not living and dying by the three, which can be dangerous, right? They're working it inside, and you know, Coach, you mentioned DeMonte Dodd. He's doing his thing. I mean, his athleticism is A1. I mean, he's doing it as a defender, a shot blocker. He's everywhere. He's getting the foul calls on one end of the floor, and then the other end of the floor, he's, you know, blocking a shot. So it's great to see that he's you know, contributing so much, especially in Des Wells' absence. But now that they have Des back, they're looking great.
And Coach, you can't. This validates, and I'm sure that Coach Turgeon has said that you can never underestimate or overestimate the value of having a heady point guard steering the ship, and Melo Trimble has been that for him.
Well, you have to have that lead guard in college basketball. You need it in the pros, but in college, you definitely, if you want to go someplace, you've got to have a point guard that knows how to run a team and can be that extension of the coach on the floor. You don't expect Trimble, you know, coming in as a freshman to excel the way he has early, but I think the sky's the limit for this young man. I mean, I think he was 10 or 11 out of 13 from the free throw line in the Minnesota game. This is a guy that you can trust because he's not going to turn the ball over. He can get you in your offensive sets. And late game situations, you put the ball in his hands, you foul him, it's game over.
Right. And it's interesting because we've seen freshmen come in and have an impact, but he has kind of like an old man's game coming in as a freshman, not the flash and dash you see of a John Wall, just a freak athlete. He's coming in as playing like a wise old young head, so to speak.
And the leadership that he's showing on the floor. I mean, isn't that just, it's great to see, right? And I love to see him just slash the lanes and cut through there, get the points, and let's go. Back on transition.
Right, and Jimmy, they've gotten off to a 2-0 start, and like you said, they really haven't got their stride yet, but they've been winning while learning, and that's the best thing you can do as a coach.
Well, they got a couple road games coming up against Illinois, Purdue, and then they come back home, Rutgers and Michigan State, a return trip for that game, so you know that'll be big. But the game to circle is February 24th, where Wisconsin comes to Maryland. That's the only time they play them, so that game there could potentially be for the regular season, you know, championship for the Big Ten. But I think Maryland, the way they're going right now, I heard Coach Turgeon speaking. He didn't feel, you know, there was a lot of room for growth. And as a coach, that's what you want. Because come the end of February, going into March, that's where you want your team peaking and rolling at that right moment.
And we had talked, Shannon, when Dyer Wells got hurt, said this was going to be a difficult period to see how they were able to wade their way through that. They had the tough loss against Virginia, which even with Wells, that might have been a tough game. They're number 3 in the country. But it seemed like Dyer's getting a chance to see and watch his young guys carry the load. He came back with the mentality of trying to fit in, as opposed to in the past, he felt like he had to be the man all the time.
And lead the way. So now he was kind of like a feather in their cap, which was an amazing thing for the Terps. And also, we haven't mentioned Jake Layman.
Yes.
Jake Layman has actually done a lot of work on the boards, offensively, shot blocking. I mean, the last couple games he's really done well, and I'm glad to see him stepping up and, you know, showing that effort.
And Coach, that was one of the things we talked about with Jake Layman and Schmocher's coming back, is that Layman, we've always seen him destroy the non-conference opponents. Is like, would his game this year transition come conference play, and so far so good?
Well, he's added to his game. When I saw him last year against Morgan State at Maryland, he just looked like a spot-up shooter to me. Now he's beating people off the bounce. He's able to attack the rim. Smotrick, remember, he started at Michigan, so he started in the Big Ten. Now he's back in the Big Ten. I'm going to throw one more name out there that I mentioned before is Rashad Pack. He's averaging 28 minutes a game. People don't realize the value at plugging him in. Played in the MEAC, I believe, at North Carolina A&T. Had the extra year, came in. When you bring a guy in that's played 3 years, is solid basketball, and that kind of experience, now he plugs in, and he just has to, you know, do a little bit of everything, but keep the cohesion there.
And the other glue guys you talked about, like DeMonte Dodd and Jonathan Graham doing the dirty work and setting that defensive tone, like you said, has been there. Defense never has a night off, should never have a night off.
Right. They're leading the way in rebounding and shot blocking. And that, I mean, did we expect that at the beginning of the season?
Right.
So I know Coach Turgeon is definitely excited about that.
Right. And there's some excitement on the hilltop as well. Georgetown had a very tough and competitive non-conference schedule. They got off to a mixed bag. They lost at Xavier, but then came back and won over the weekend against Creighton, but they're still in the top 25.
Yeah, well, they cracked the top 25, and just backtracking a little bit, the game at Madison Square Garden where they were able to beat, it was huge to beat Indiana. I told you, the last couple of years when they haven't got the ticket to the dance, they didn't have signature wins outside the conference. They got one, they played Wisconsin tough, so now they have that. But with Villanova ranked 6th in the country, St. John's, I think I saw where they were 15th. Now you got 4 games against top 25 opponents in conference. They got to win at least 2 out of those 4 meetings so that they keep building their resume up when it's time to make those decisions in March.
And Shannon, we talked about Maryland's freshman class, but Georgetown surprisingly has a very effective freshman class that's helping them out.
They do. What is it, about 4 guys that are really exceptional this season, and it's great that they have those guys putting up points and, you know, making the plays there down the stretch. But at 7th in the Big East, I mean, it's a tough conference to be in. I don't know that. I know it's still early, but I don't know that we're going to see them once we get to our favorite month.
Right. It's going to be interesting, but like you said, the challenge is Devontae Smith-Rivera, their best scorer, having to try to transition him into a lead guard, because it doesn't look like Trey Campbell is quite ready to take over the reins at the point guard.
Well, Campbell did come off the bench and have 13 points in the Creighton victory, and Smith Rivera only had 5. So the good news is their bench, I think, came up with 39 points. Young players, especially freshmen, the first part of the season, I know this from coaching, it takes them almost that first half of the season to understand what's going on. And then a couple of them might have a growth spurt come January, February. Hopefully for Georgetown that happens sooner than later. That can push them and elevate them. But I think that they do have a solid chance. They have to do well in the Big East because Big East is no longer 18, bid league. And you've got to steal a couple of those games against Villanova and St. John's.
Right. And we aired all throughout the DMV, so we got to give some love to University of Virginia, even though they're way out on the northern portion, but they're number 3 in the country for the second week in a row.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at Virginia leading the way. I mean, you look at some of ESPN's bracketology right now, and Maryland actually would be coming out of Duke's section there. So they would have to go through Duke just to get to the Final Four. That's kind of.
It seems like they say they don't think about those matchups, but somehow I think that might end up that way.
Yeah,
just for
that
TV
would be
rights.
scary.
I
But
would enjoy a Terp beat down of the Blue Devils.
It's a tough one. I mean, they've got a one and done year. You might want it'll be interesting if that comes to pass. But also on the local front, on the CIAA, which is near and dear to your heart, Coach, our buddy Lexa Taylor, Shannon, was telling us that Bowie State is leading the conference right now on a 4-game winning streak. He tried to get us to get some coverage out there tonight, but we had something else on the docket for the
playing the Rams tonight.
Yeah. So you got any insight on what they've been doing?
Well, I just know that, they've been looking really good. First of all, let me say they played Johnson C. Smith this weekend, my alma mater. And we didn't win that one, but, they ended up winning that one. The guys that are coming together for that team, it's just great. I mean, they have a former player, Brian Wilson, on their assistant coaching staff that's leading those guys and, working with the guards and things like that. And, he's got him sharp.
Wow, Brian is an assistant coach now. He's actually a cousin of my wife, Lou Wilson's. His dad is Coach Riverdale Baptist.
At Riverdale Baptist,
and remember Brian playing and see him, knowing him as a kid, and see him coaching now. That's incredible. But go ahead, Jimmy.
Larry Stewart, the former Coppin State great that got them on the map years ago, is an assistant at Bowie as well.
So the CIAA shaping up, and it's always it seems like this. It just jumps from pre-conference to it's tournament time.
Yeah,
it's
CIAA
like
tournament.
Once it gets going, everything's going. And last we got to show the ladies some love. The Lady Terps still in the top 10. They got their first victories, first taste of Big Ten action. A great, exciting game against Ohio State, who had a run and gun type style, and Maryland was able to come out on top.
And Nebraska, and they're crashing the boards too. With Shatori, I mean, she's always doing work. We know that, but Lauren Mincy, I love what she's doing, and I mean, those ladies, whether it's the boards or just putting up points, I mean, they are outscoring their opponents by at least 25.
So they were able to get that Nebraska game. I was busy all weekend, didn't even get a chance to understand that. So appreciate that insight. Well, that's going to wrap it up for college basketball.